and how they perform in terms of when they're trying to win votes.
Yes, sir.
The thing that I've been pondering is, building on this other question, a lot of people seem to say, well, this checks and balances, he's not really going to do what he says he's going to do. What reason do we really think, with the forces that he's unleashed and the legitimacy by the attention given to some of the racism and bigotry and things like that, that forces have been unleashed in our society that the checks and balances we think exist maybe won't exist? And I get really troubled, for instance, when you see former members of senior officers on both sides getting involved, and it just, I wonder at what point do we become close to a banana republic? You know, at what point are we being too saying, well, he really doesn't mean it? Does it really matter if he doesn't really mean it? If he's really about power and the forces that he's unleashed become bigger than him, and you have like the SA out there, or you have.
I've heard this so many times that, you know, it's really just the presidency.
I think of it
I mean, and they're not kidding. They say, look at Washington. I mean, there's Congress. Really not much gets done. It's the image. He's a strong guy. And number two, he's not the same old thing. So that's what they're electing. And for some amazing reason, so then we started writing a story about actually the president has a lot of power. I mean, it seems so obvious, but you're like, you could get us into a lot of trouble very quickly. And we should keep writing that, because that sentiment is out there. And even more than that, you'll talk to people and you'll say, well, you support the Muslim ban. But how would that work exactly? And then you start talking about the money and how it would work. And they go, well, you know, we don't think he's really going to do that, because it's just more like that he's going to be strong against it. And he'll be thinking about how he wants to keep that people out. And the same with the wall. You're like, wait a minute, it's 2,000 miles. How much money would that cost? And again, so he's getting this benefit because people want him to say it. They shout it at the rallies, and yet they're like, oh, we don't really expect he's going to build it. It's the sentiment. It's that he wants to. It's that he's telling us, I hear you, you're fed up with all the immigration, and a lot of people who think that NAFTA was bad took their jobs. So he's just better than his opponent, kind of connecting with people through TV. Maybe.
There's another aspect to your question, and it comes from the word unleashed. I've had this in the back of my mind for a long time before the election, but it's really come into play in the last several months, which is, I think what we're seeing now has been in play, has been developing and unfolding and unpacking itself for about 15 or 20 years, maybe 25 years. And the separation, the lack of comedy in Congress, ironically, with the rise of the internet, we've seen a surge, a deepening of anti-intellectual behavior. And I sort of feel like it's come into play, almost cresting now at this election. And to me, that's the more those are the undercurrents that are more troubling, because it's not who gets elected president necessarily, it's deeper trends in our society, which I suspect we'll be exploring after the election, because they're not going to go away immediately.
But I would just add one cautionary note, because there's an assumption often among Trump opponents that the rallies are these gatherings of extremists and racists and so on, and that's just not the case. There are crazies at his rallies, to be sure. They're extremists, but there are also a lot of, I did a story a few weeks ago about Obama-Trump voters, and there are a lot of them. And these are the hope and change voters. And these are people who saw in Barack Obama someone who heard exactly the kinds of things that Robert and Bob mentioned, and took that to heart and reflected what the frustrations and troubles that people were going through. And a lot of those same people see that in Donald Trump. And those are not extremists. So we have time for just one last question. Yes, ma'am.
Thinks about his own skills vis-a-vis those requirements.
he knows he's good at everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he would, I mean, he would say that. I mean, and people respond to his confidence. And he has said that he will get really smart people around him. And I mean, it's all about the confidence. And he has not, I mean, he has not said, you know, what is Aleppo yet.
But we did learn that he would have caught Osama bin Laden before 9/11 today.
Right.
There, I think the undercut of your question is a really important thing to explore. And throughout this country, I think there's a big debate over what is the requirement for a president, right? And for Donald Trump, he said what the requirement was 30 years ago, and he reiterated it 20 years ago. And that was a person who could reinvigorate the spirit of America, who has boldness and pomposity. Those are his words. And so does he think he fits the requirement? Absolutely. I mean, the question is a sort of values question on what the presidency should be. And that's, you know, that's where things get interesting.
One thing that's remarkable about Trump is that he's always had this very small circle of people he can really rely on. They're usually a couple of family members. With the casinos, there were 1 or 2 people, like I mentioned, who died in that helicopter crash. And time again, you see that there's 1 or 2 vital persons who can really tell him what to do. He does prefer having an acolyte. He doesn't like to be told that he's wrong. And so oftentimes you see people being fired. And you see it again in this campaign. He's gone through 2 campaign managers already. So that would be a big question for him. As president, he would have to tackle many issues that he doesn't know anything about. And would he rely on that advice? How would he organize that and synthesize that? So I think that's one of the big questions.
He talks about getting things done. The best way is an army of one. And it's very hard to run a country with just one person. And I would say that this is going to be a key thing in the debate, because Hillary Clinton has this, I mean, it's a polar opposite. She's had all this experience in government. And he is certainly going to answer this and say that he has the temperament, he's shown through his businesses, and he has the confidence to get the right people around him.
If he's right, he'll completely redefine what it means to be president, given his biography, his track record.